Julian's going to talk next. Interesting career. He might fill you in, but I'll just mention a couple of things that he's been to. He went to WOC when he was a junior in 2005, along with Henny. Henny went in 2004 as well. And that was actually his best result, I think. No, equal best result when he was 20. And so, yeah, and there's also interspersed with injuries along the way, so I'll let you tell them all about it. Thanks.
I won't keep you here till midnight like Grant did. I'll try and be pretty quick. I'll go through, from about 16 to 26, because that sort of fits my development a little bit easier. I'll take you through what I did in those years, and then I'll talk about some of the lessons I've learned, I guess, from motivation to training. So 16 for me, that was 2001. I'm a little bit slightly younger than Grant, if you probably noticed. So 2001 for me, I was 16. I'd been orienteering since I was, since basically I was born into an orienteering family, so I didn't have a choice. I've been going since I was 0. And so I enjoyed it. Well, I didn't know anything else basically. I did cricket and soccer growing up and really enjoyed that. But when I got to 16, I sort of made a choice. So I saw a lot of my friends, a lot of older friends, going to JWOC. They were going to JWOC when I was 16, and like some really good mates, they're going to Czech Republic, having a great time. I'm thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to go to JWOC, I want to go to Europe. So I was training really hard, and so I went to my first JWOC when I was 17, in 2002, to Spain. At the time of my life, I thought it was awesome. I was in my year 12 year at school, and I was so sad I had to come home straight away, because I had to do exams, but it was awesome, and I was hooked from then on. And I had got some semi-decent results there. It was in Spain, really similar terrain to Australia, so it was a lot easier as a junior going to a similar terrain. And then I was hooked, and then I went to JWOC 4 years in a row, Estonia, Poland, and then my final year in Switzerland in 2005. And by then I'd gotten a taste of the European orienteering culture, and I just wanted to go back. So I spent 6 months after JWOC in 2005 in Sweden, running for a club, and I did like the second half of the year, so I did the Swedish champs, and also I went to WOC that year in Japan with Grant and Joe. So that was 2005, so last year was my junior, and I also went to WOC for the first time, just running middle distance. Then after that I had 6 months in Sweden. That was a really good experience, running the Swedish champs and so on as a junior. And then I came home to Canberra. So I moved and did uni in Canberra and spent the next probably 2 years here. But it didn't really satisfy my motivation. I wanted more. I wanted to go back over to Sweden, but I was also drawn doing university back in Australia. So I decided to have 6 months off, and I went over for another 6 months in 2008 when I was 23, and did a season that year to sort of satisfy my hunger, so to speak. And then I went to WOC that year, WOC 2009, I skipped WOC because I was studying. 2010, I went to WOC in Trondheim while I was living in Canberra. And then by 26, I decided, I'd finished my uni, wanted to move over, so I moved to Sweden in 2011 when I was 26, and I've been living there for the last 5 years. So that's my journey, basically. If I was going to look at training, I didn't really train. When I was 16, I ran a little bit, but I never had an athletics background. I was never a really good runner, so I had to work at that part of it for sure. Like I'd make it to state cross country in New South Wales, but I'd come like 70th or 80th when I got to state cross country. So I wasn't like Dave Meyer, who was the course setter today. He went to state cross country and come in the top 10, and he'd smash me. So like I had to work at the running a fair bit. So once I moved to Canberra when I was in 2003 from Sydney, that's when I started to learn how to train. Being around people in Canberra, there was a good orienteering community here at that time. And then in 2005, people like Grant moved back, and Dave Shepherd. There was a good training culture, and that's where I started learning how to train hard, basically. And that really got me into good shape for JWOC, my last JWOC in 2005. And I've learnt a lot from my first 3 JWOCs, and I was learning all those 3 years. And it really, for me, it didn't come together until 2005, where I got a decent result. and I learned how to train in those years as well. So that was the most important thing, learning how to train hard. Like Grant said, I don't think it's not sort of rocket science. You got to do it, and you got to train hard. Whether twice a day, if you're running twice a day, 10 hours a week, I'd say for sure, to train hard to get physically where you need to be at the top in the international orienteering races. That's the first thing, and that's what I learned being in Canberra, being with a good group of people. For me, that was the most important thing, learning off people around me who've done it before. Then I went to Sweden, and my 2 stints in Sweden when I was young, they were pretty important, just to learn the terrain and be in the international context. That was really important, to learn how to compete in those terrains. But for me, what I guess maybe in my development, I think there's a bit of a gap basically. Like my dad said, I went to WOC when I was 20, and I came 22nd or 24th, I don't know, somewhere around there. And I haven't improved on that up until now. So 10 years later, I went to WOC in 2014, and I came 24th again in the middle distance. So I've never broken the top 20 barrier. And so that's my weakness in my career, I see, basically. And I look back at my development pathway, what I could have done differently, and I think maybe if I was my transition from JWOCs, from 4 JWOCs, where I got to a level in 2005 I was pretty happy with. I had a pretty big injury in 2006, a stress fracture, that put me out for a year, but I still, by 2007 at WOC, I was back in coming 22nd and 24th. But from then on, I sort of came back to Australia, and I decided to study, and that sacrificed a few years. And to me, if I went overseas, made the move overseas earlier, then maybe I would have had more success or taken the next step. And it's only now, when I'm later on in my 20s, or 30 now, that I've been there for 4 years, which I feel like I've developed the strength in the terrain to get better. But I think in a development pathway, JWOC is crucial to get you motivated, and then from then on, building towards seniors, I think you really need international experience. You really need the competition that is in Europe, because it's so competitive over there compared to Australia, and so I think that's crucial to make that step to WOC. And that's my point of view. Others might disagree, but I think that's a really crucial part to think about and plan. And it's not easy because it's on the other side of the world, and so it's hard. You can go over and have an odd job and like scrape by on a bare income and try and do all the races, but it's not cheap, so it's not easy that way. But to me, I think that's a pretty crucial step that we as Australians need to do, particularly the forest races. Maybe not for the sprint, but for the forest, I think so. So yeah, so that's my development pathway till 26. Thanks.